Gev Iskajyan, thank you very much for being on Syriana Analysis. You're the representative of the Armenian National Committee in Artsakh. You're doing a spectacular job from Artsakh itself. Some people may know the region as Nagorno-Karabakh, but we will use the term Artsakh during this interview. And funny enough, Azerbaijani protesters who claim to be eco-activists, I don't know what kind of eco-activists are they, they're blocking the Lachin corridor, the only road that links Armenia proper to Artsakh since December the 12th. Now, who are these eco-activists and what environmental demands do they claim to have in order to block this road?
So I think it's important to lay a primer down in terms of what the protest culture in Azerbaijan is like, which is non-existent. So for us, as we talk about eco-activists or protesters in that regard, we have to keep in mind that nothing like that happens, especially in like a militarized zone like the Berdzor corridor, unless there's a state-sponsored permission. So that's one. What they're demanding is they want access to certain mines in Artsakh. However, at the same time, there's a bit of hypocrisy because in the currently occupied regions of Artsakh today, they're opening up mines left and right that nobody is talking about, that they're not looking into. So it's a disingenuous act. Now they've closed this corridor for this is the 15th day now. Look, at first they were claiming to be eco-activists. Then you see days where they're throwing up the Grey Wolf sign. For those that are unfamiliar, the Grey Wolves is a fascistic, ultranationalist Turkish organization. So those two ideologies don't coincide, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have other days where you see militants, Azerbaijani militants show up. You see people brought in with buses. So you know that this is a state-sponsored action to exert pressure onto the populace here. And I'm sure we'll get into this to feed into their overall goal, which is the ethnic cleansing of over 120,000 people that live here.
Mm-hmm. Gev, in my opinion, this situation is very serious, and it reminds me to lots of siege actions that are being conducted by several players in the region and abroad against different nations, whether through physical blockade that is happening now with Artsakh, and in other cases it's non-military means or non-physical means such as economic siege, right? But in the case of Artsakh, what's the humanitarian situation right now? And does Azerbaijan still cut the gas supply to the enclave?
So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So for the first 3 days of this blockade, they had cut off the gas supply as well, which we're talking about wintertime here. It gets very cold. We had over 20,000 kids that couldn't go to school for a week because of that. Due to some type of international pressure, they've eased off of that. However, today, as they block off that only road that comes in and out of Artsakh, they also block out all food, all supplies, all medicine, everything that a nation needs to survive essentially is cut off. I can tell you from firsthand experience as we walk through the stores, there's all the stores that sell fresh produce, that sell fruits, vegetables, all those things, they're all depleted. We're on the second week now, so none of that is available in the stores. Secondly, we have some places that have problem with flour and grain, which is very vital because you're talking about bread. At the same time, we have folks in the hospitals. Some of them need urgent care that we sent to Yerevan. They cannot get through. On top of that, you have a low supply of medicine. So I would say this is a humanitarian crisis, as you rightly stated, but it's important to keep in mind that it affects every single layer of society here, from the elderly to the kids who can't go to school to the average citizen here that needs just food and basic resources to survive.
Mm-hmm. I think this is also similar to what Israel does to the Palestinians, right? I think Azerbaijan has learned a lot from the Israeli experience and the way they are trying to choke the people by sieging them, surrounding them, harassment, physical assault, just try to make life as miserable as possible, right? So that you force these people to leave. And if they leave voluntarily, they want to go, for example, back to Armenia proper, this will also make the job of Azerbaijan easier in the process of ethnic cleansing that is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. I have made several videos drawing parallels between the Israeli and the Azerbaijani policies, and I think since they are strategic allies, Azerbaijan wants to copy a few of these policies with the Armenians, including the arm deliveries from Azerbaijan to Baku. That there was like literally an air bridge during the second Artsakh, where Israel was delivering all sorts of weaponry to Azerbaijan. However, I would like to refer to an article today I was reading on Reuters. I will share it with the audience. This is the article on Reuters. Says Nagorno-Karabakh in for long winter amid Azerbaijan road blockade. The first paragraph says ethnic Armenians in the disputed enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh are preparing for a long-term blockade by Azerbaijan, a top separatist official said on Friday, after nearly 2 weeks without fresh supplies of food and medicine. Later, the article also refers to Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh and says Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but its 120,000 inhabitants are predominantly Armenian, and it broke away from Baku in a first war in early 90s. Now, in your opinion, what's the legal status of Artsakh from the Armenian perspective, let's say, first of all? And do you think the reporting of Reuters and other press, the similar reporting, gives legitimacy to Azerbaijan, to the Azeri actions against the Armenians of Artsakh?
Look, as far as everyone here in Artsakh is concerned, Artsakh is an independent state. So those, the labeling of separatists or whatever other, lingo that they use, a lot of these media outlets use, it might pertain to folks when they say it's disputed internationally. It's not disputed here. It's not disputed amongst the populace. It's not disputed among the over 120,000 people that in the early 90s, actually, right as the Soviet Union broke off, voted to become an independent republic. Self-determination states that they have the right to do so, to cede their own land. And that was the process that followed. So when folks categorize it as something that happened after, and this is a vital thing to remember because narrative shapes so much of what we understand. When people say this is something that happened after or during the first Karabakh War, no, that's not the case. This happened before the Karabakh War, which led to ethnic cleansing in places like Sumgait and Baku, which helped prove why the Armenians here had to claim independence, had to have their own land here, because the only other result would be ethnic cleansing. And we see that today. We see those actions in process today. You mentioned that there's a series of steps that people go through, whether it's besieging a land, blockading it, blocking off all access to resources that leads to the ethnic cleansing of this population. And that's what Azerbaijan wants to see. And unfortunately, as a lot of these outlets are used to reporting it. One, they're used to reporting it. Two, we cannot discount the fact that Azerbaijan pumps a lot of money into PR, into foreign lobbyists, into all those things to help shape these narratives too. So we can't take it as a given. We have to look at it as a active process that Azerbaijan spends tons of money on in helping shape this narrative. It's more vital that independent voices like yourself are conducting these types of interviews, this type of research, so that people get more access, people have an understanding what the folks here are thinking.
Gev, this is something that the Armenians always say, that Azerbaijan pays money to foreign lobbies, politicians, journalists, etc., while Azerbaijan ridicules these claims. Even the German mainstream media, they had to admit that many politicians, including member of parliaments in Germany, they were bribed by Azerbaijan, whether directly or indirectly. They have assets in Azerbaijan, gas deals with Azerbaijan, even gifts they were receiving in order to have favorable votes or favorable policies towards Azerbaijan. And nowadays we can see also, in my opinion, increasing European harmonized policy with Azerbaijan because of the Ukraine war, and I think all these things are playing against the Armenian survival demand. At the end of the day, this is like, I truly say this not because I'm Armenian. I say this because these people there, the only thing they are calling for is survival, is that the right to exist on this land, on this region. Our ancestors go back into thousands of years back. And now, because they're sandwiched between two hostile countries, I mean, is there any sane person with two, I always use this word, like two functioning brain cells, who think that Azerbaijan and Turkey do not want to sandwich Armenia and do not want to ethnically cleanse? I mean, every time we have a discussion with the fascists in Azerbaijan or Turkey, for example, on Twitter, first they deny that they have committed genocide like 105 years ago, and two, they start saying that we will repeat what we did like 100 years ago. We will do it again. It's like, you have to choose. You either didn't do it 105 years ago, or you will do it again. So it's a really ridiculous thing. Now, this ethnic cleansing, let's say the Azerbaijan says it's an allegation, right, from the Armenians. They don't have any interest to ethnically cleanse. However, just yesterday, I found an Azerbaijani journalist in Baku, and he translated what Aliyev said on this current crisis. And I will read this tweet.
That's what I was just pulling up. Okay, look, I'm glad you're. I don't need to prove anything. We can just read the excerpts from Aliyev's mouth directly.
Yes,
brilliant that you. Yes.
This is Kavit or Chavit Ara. He says, so this is a translation. I just want to read a little bit these tweets. Aliyev enhances his historical revisionism target. He says, I quote, "Our books on historical facts need to be updated. We will invite scientists, archaeologists, historians from the countries we consider our friends to hold a prestigious international conference and present it. I quote again, many steps should be taken so that this topic doesn't leave the agenda, but instead, this topic is included in the international agenda, because today Armenia is a mono-ethnic state. When we say this, we are rightly telling the world community that this is intolerable. Quote, they expelled all other peoples from there and established a state for themselves in someone else's land. Armenia has never been in this area. Today, Armenia is our land. Armenia is our land. When I say this many times, they object to me. They try to imply that I have a territorial claim. I quote, I say this as a historical fact. If someone can confirm otherwise, please come and do so. When was the Armenian people moved to our lands, Karabakh, Zangezur? By whom, how, and for what purpose was it transferred? We know that very well. Then he says Armenians has no state in Southern Caucasus. Quote, even if there was one, it is not yet clear whose state they want to claim in their name. It was somewhere else. Therefore, we must present our claims in a purposeful, organized manner, in the correct form. I'm sure we will achieve it. I quote, in parallel with this, we should also work on the concept of return to Western Azerbaijan, brackets Armenia, with collective efforts. After the settlement of the Karabakh conflict, this is the issue on our agenda. Quote, of course, it was perhaps too early to talk about it until the Karabakh conflict was resolved. However, I think we should not waste time today. A return concept should be developed. Still, it should be a peaceful concept, as they say. Quote, we should take the provisions acceptable to us in all international conventions and claim our right based on it. There must be a return concept. Gev, what's your comment on this? He's not talking about just Karabakh. He says Armenia is his land.
Well, this is genocidal, dangerous, fascist, all those like labels that you can put on it. This is, for the first time, an honest assessment of what the Azerbaijani government is trying to do, and in turn what the Turkish government is trying to do. For decades, Armenians here in Artsakh, Armenians in Armenia have said that this was the stated goal of Azerbaijan and Turkey. And folks said, whoa, don't be extremist. Don't jump to that gun. We said we need to have independence here because they want to ethnically cleanse us. They want to wipe us out. And maybe it might start in Artsakh, but it will then go to Armenia. Today, right now, what you just read is the proof of all of those notions that we've put forth over the last 30, 40 years. He's outright stating it. And to be honest, I'm glad he's saying it. Let us have his name on this for one, so the international community that he hides behind so many times often sees these words. Look, this is, like I said in the beginning, this is genocidal, this is dangerous, but I'm glad he's clearly stating what their intentions are. We need to know what they are, the Armenian populace in Artsakh, in Armenia, so that we don't make any false assumptions about these like fake narratives of coexistence with people that want to ethnically cleanse us. Secondly, we need to show the international community that keeps preaching to us. They do this both sides of them, right? The Armenians need to find a language with the Azerbaijanis, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, and a lot of times, whether it's the EU, whether it's the West, whether it's any region on earth, they come in, they try to preach democracy to us, where we have a dictatorship right next to us. At the same time, they try to preach, these peaceful coalitions, all these other things. The head of the country right next to us, and Turkey's representatives have said the same thing too, are outright calling for ethnic cleansing and genocide. Not historically, they're calling for it today.
I think these statements can be used in legal procedures, in resolutions in the UN Security Council. These statements are dangerous and they are threats of ethnic cleansing against the Armenians. And he's even saying it in a peaceful, when he said that they want to do this in a peaceful way, he's saying it in a sarcastic way. Yeah. So the language is very important. And I think, as you mentioned, it's very good thing that Aliyev himself is confessing the end goal of this conflict, right? So that at least the Armenians would know. Those who are misled by this conflict, some of them, I would say they want to, let's finish this conflict, make peace, just like some of the Arabs say, before ending the roots of the conflict with in Palestine, let's just make a deal with Israel and live in peace and harmony. I think when you don't solve the root of the causes of this conflict, it will just lead into further deterioration of your situation, because you are the one who is the victim of this conflict, right? In Armenia. And unfortunately, the position of Armenia, when I see it on the map and I see the alliances and how these different regional and international dynamics work, I see it in a very difficult situation. And here comes we mention always the international community. Who is the international community? Now, I think we have at least two different powers, right, in the international community trying to shape the upcoming international community or international system, one of which is Russia, China, Iran, and the BRICS bloc or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So accordingly, I would like to first ask about what the Russian peacekeeping forces are doing in Artsakh. Have they failed in their mission, in your opinion, or there is no will to enforce the ceasefire from the Russian side?
So I think we have to, as you're aware, always refrain from painting this with like a black and white. So are there more things that I wish the Russian peacekeepers would do, like make sure that this blockade is not in effect? Absolutely. There's more that can be demanded. At the same time, I'm very cognizant of the fact that the reason right now that Azeris aren't shooting into Stepanakert, where most of the populace lives, the reason that Azerbaijan isn't besieging us today is because of the presence of those Russian peacekeepers who are, like us, in a delicate situation. So yes, there is more that I wish they would do, especially in regards to this blockade. At the same time, we understand while many other powers offer us words, thoughts, and prayers, we do have a ground force here that's making sure that Armenians, as of right now, don't get ethnically cleansed. And I don't mean, quote unquote, in a peaceful way that Aliyev states. I mean through besiegement and, by aggression and violence.
We can see, Gev, lots of politicians. So we spoke about the Russian side, right? But on the other side, especially on the Western side, we see lots of prayers and thoughts coming, wishing everything good for the Armenians, and at the same time we can see
oil deals,
gas deals, and more, let's say, like improving the relations with Azerbaijan. How do the Armenians see, especially the European, the EU, dealing with Azerbaijan in terms of these gas deals?
So I think people are wising up to the fact that, like, putting our fate in any, I'm a strong believer that we have to utilize our geopolitical relations. We cannot put our fate into any singular power on Earth. And at the same time, we have to be wise to how geopolitical interests work. Because as you said, look, the EU comes and says things like, we're very concerned with what's going on with the 120,000 Armenians in the humanitarian, crisis. However, real quick, we're going to sign this multi-billion-dollar gas deal with Aliyev. And it's, one, hypocritical. Two, I think it in a sense builds complicity, because if Azerbaijan sees that the reaction from all of these global powers who like to give lessons around the world is, please don't do that. It's a tweet, it's a statement, but literally business functions as it does. They're fine with that. They're fine with that. And we have to be very cognizant of that fact.
Gev, just last thought about what's the Armenian government doing in this regard under the leadership of Nikol Pashinyan? Is he doing enough in terms of diplomatic efforts or even military means to improve the situation of the Armenians stuck in Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh?
I'm going to give my personal opinion on this. I would not say, I would say the last, 4 years in terms of the geopolitical processes that we talked about has been completely fumbled by the Armenian government. I think they are lacking in friends and international partners across the world. And they are, part of the reason why we don't have many strong alliances today that we should have been able to bank on in situations like this. Secondly, we are used to a proud history in this republic of, we know that, there are times where the entire world could turn its back on the people of Armenia, but we would have the agency and the ability to defend ourselves. That if there was a blockade, we can lift it ourselves. Today, we're not in that position. Today, we're in a position where we have to ask the international community and the powers that be to help. And I think, unfortunately, that's due to many of the failures of the Armenian government. Now, regardless of that, Azerbaijan was and is going to be a genocidal state that wants to see us ethnically cleansed. All of those realities still currently exist. But to say I expect more or want more of the Armenian government is the slightest criticism I can possibly give them.
Unfortunately, what do you say to the people watching you, Gev, how to raise awareness about the Artsakh case and where they should follow your work so they can see what's happening because you're underground there?
So I would say we have ANC chapters across the world. So wherever you are, from the EU to the United States to Russia to Lebanon and elsewhere, find a way to get active in your local chapters. Follow their social media accounts. You can follow me on Twitter at Gev Iskajyan, our ANCA page, and various other pages. Lastly, I would say, as Kevork rightly mentioned, we are going up against a machine that has billions to spend, that has gas contracts that they utilize, and all we have is our narrative and our voice. So the more that we speak about it, the more that work that we put in this effort in regards to media and putting our voice out there, the more important it is. So I would say go out there, make your voice heard, follow people that are shedding narratives from the ground here, and help amplify that.
Guys, I will put the links for the Armenian National Committee page in the description below. I will also put the Twitter account of Gev Iskajyan in the description below. Please go and follow them. Try, at least the least thing you can do is to retweet and share the work that Gev and the committee is doing in Artsakh. Try to talk with your surrounding, with friends, family, if you meet someone, if you go out and there is political talk, because every time we go out, everyone is talking about the Ukraine war. We totally understand the suffering of the Ukrainian people. We sympathize with them. However, since the media is completely focused on the Ukraine war, nobody is talking about the Azerbaijani aggression against the Armenians. And even if they do so, as you can see, they manipulate you to certain terminologies, and this is not a coincidence. Please be careful. The press is not independent. They are corporate, they are financiers, they are funders, and there are so many interests going on there. So I think since the interest of the governments in different countries are becoming more aligned with Azerbaijan, you will see the press is also becoming more biased in favor of Azerbaijan. Gev Iskajyan, thank you very much for joining me from Artsakh. I salute you, and I'm very proud to have a comrade like you in Artsakh doing all this amazing work. Guys, as I mentioned, please follow him, and let's share awareness about this case. Gev, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gev. Appreciate it.